Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Lauren Myers. I am the CPA FMA Executive Director, and today I will be your session host. As a reminder, today's session is being recorded and attendees are muted for better sound quality. However, you may type questions in the chat at any time. CPE credit is available for this Mapcast, and certificates will arrive via email within 48 hours. To receive credit, you must take part in the poll questions during the session, as well as the evaluation survey at the end of the session. If the evaluation survey does not appear on your screen following the webinar, you can send me an email as verification to info@cpafma.org. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our featured guest, Nick Rapaz. Nick serves as the Vice President of Outsourcing Sales for Forest Solutions Advisory. Nick, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you to the entire association for having me today. Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are. As Lauren said, my name is Nick Rapaz. I'm the Vice President of Outsourcing at Forest Solutions. My expertise is in outsourcing and organizational transformation across a whole host of professional services verticals. Work with a lot of CPA firms around the country and have for the last decade plus. So my experience is in implementing on-site and off-site solutions that are really meant to drive efficiency, conform to industry change, and hopefully proactively improve on-site operations for firms who prefer to be on the cutting edge. So Forest Solutions, as an organization, just so all of you are aware, we are the largest specialty firm of our kind in the US. We're 100% focused on providing staffing and outsource support to professional services specific to on-site support. So there's really no operation too large or too small. I think our largest engagement has well over 100 plus FTEs for a big four operation, while the smallest firm we support is just a few FTEs to provide office support services. So, organizationally, why are we focused exclusively on on-site support services? Post-pandemic, firms in my industry really had to make a strategic decision on, where they were going to go and what the market was going to value moving forward. Most of our competitors, who are a lot larger than us in some cases and more spread out in terms of what they provide, well, they decided to pivot towards technology during the early days of the pandemic. At Forest, we kind of zagged when they zigged, and we thought a little bit differently. So we doubled down on the importance of people services and helping our clients build up internal support staff to be as efficient and as proficient as possible. Because we knew eventually our clients were going to come back to the office. It would look different, and they would need us to help them navigate the new normal. And so far, it's been a bet that's paid off for us. So, in today's environment, firms are really choosing between either a strict mandate of 4 or 5 days in the office or a hybrid model of 1 to 3 days in the office at your leisure. As a provider, we really don't have a dog in this race, and that's extremely helpful to us because our organization supports firms on either side of the spectrum. So today, I'm specifically here to emphasize the importance of the office and how it is equally important to support it correctly. So I just put together a couple of slides. I don't think I'm going to go for an entire hour here, but I want to cover just 4 main things. Number one, the state of the workplace and what return to office has looked like for most of the industry. I also want to cover how service is either greater than or equal to the different amenities that you provide to your fee earners and professional staff in the office. I want to talk about the difference between me space and we space as it regards to doing a complete rebuild of your workspace. And then number 4, something I say to my kids all the time is there's really only one way to eat an elephant. Everyone knows it's one bite at a time. You can't expect major change to happen overnight. You can't catch up to some of the leaders in the market overnight. It has to be incremental change, one bite at a time. And I'm going to share with you a couple of strategies that our clients across professional services have implemented to earn people back to the office just little by little. So, that being said, one of the options that I had as a presenter today was to present some questions to the group. So we put a couple of them together. I figured we can get them out of the way immediately. So, Lauren, I believe you're going to be the person to launch these. But there we go. So question one, on average, how many days per week are your fee earners expected to visit the office? This doesn't include office support staff. This doesn't include IT support or anybody who's really required to be in 5 days a week. Your fee earners specifically, how often do they need to be in the office? All right. So not a lot of hardliners there, still doing 5 days a week, I can see, which is predictable. And I've got data that essentially mirrors exactly what we're seeing in this poll. 68% with no hard mandate. Most people, who do have any kind of mandate, 3 days, 4 days a week, with the majority being on 3. So that's helpful. Can we go to question 2, Lauren? All right. So in your firm, which of the following would be the most important driver toward increasing in-office attendance? How can we get people to come back more than the 3-4 days a week, or 2 or 3 days a week, I should say? And on this one, I like what I see. Enhanced workplace services and hospitality is 50% mandates from leadership. Ruling with an iron fist comes in at 40, and then the age old free food and scheduled events for the daily amenities is a small 10%. I think a lot of us have seen that those daily amenities, they can quickly become a necessity if people get way too used to it. And most of the firms that I support all agree that they're throwing out way too much free food at the end of every single day. But I hope I can win the 10% of you over that enhanced workplace services and hospitality is the way to go on this one. So with that, I'll continue. These worked out pretty much exactly what how the data said it would. But one thing is for certain from a management perspective. Every firm wants to see their professionals back into the office more often. But we also realize that the toothpaste can never really be put back into the tube, because as professionals were forced to work from home during the pandemic, they learned that they liked it quite a bit. And, hybrid is really here to stay. So, this slide is a soft touch equals soft compliance. If there's no actual mandate that has teeth, you are not going to get results in the way that you would like. If you give people the option and strongly suggest that they only spend 2 or 3 days in the office, the results are that you're probably only going to get 1 or 2. This data that I have on the screen came from an industry survey that we did for professional services firms, where most firms are operating on some kind of hybrid schedule, but they only 94% aren't complying with the schedule that is suggested. And this has led to drastic changes for many firms who want to increase participation in the office. So in the early days, firms made the soft suggestion on how often somebody should be in the office, and like I said, non-compliance was a big factor in that. And I've seen it firsthand. In my suburban Midwest neighborhood that I live in, I'm surrounded by what the industry would call knowledge workers. Across the street, I have an attorney. A little further down, I have a CPA and a financial advisor under the same household, and even more work in medical device or Fortune 500. But slowly but surely, and usually over a driveway cocktail, I've heard anecdotes and horror stories about the return to office mandates that they've been subjected to, that frankly, if they're not compliant, it's beginning to threaten things like their year-end bonus or potential eligibility for promotions. So these are things that are happening across the industry right now. A lot of firms are putting teeth toward these return to office mandates. And in some ways, it's working. Slowly but surely, firms are winning the battle. Uh, this data goes from March 2020, when everyone fell off the same cliff up there, all the way until today. Castle puts out great data on a monthly basis, sometimes a weekly or biweekly basis as well. Tracking card swipes across professional services and Fortune 500. And you can see it's just been a slow slogging climb back up to the 50-60%, depending on your market. The workforce is bending a bit toward the preference of leadership because, like I said, the mandates suddenly have teeth and attitudes are shifting. And it's a bit of a compromise, but the sweet spot seems to be 3 days a week, as our data or our polling suggested at the beginning of this webinar. Usually it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But that may be the red line before complete revolt. I guess we'll see, what the next year of data looks like, and if firms are, making people come back to the office at a higher clip. But it's important to mention that this is highly dependent on geography. Attitudes in a place like Columbus, Ohio, or Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I am, are very, very different from Boston, New York, or Los Angeles. And it really, unfortunately comes down to the severity of your commute. We don't in flyover country, we don't have it as bad as the folks on the coasts. But, going through more Castle data, you can see the 10 city average occupancy is just about 50%. In a lot of these cities, it's gone down in recent weeks. But, there are certain geographical trends. So Austin and Houston and Texas, are hovering around the 60% mark. Places like San Francisco, for example, a place that I visit frequently to see clients, that city's it hasn't bounced back like a New York, like a Boston, or any of the cities that we support in Texas or Florida. It's very, very regional. And this breaks down the data just a little bit more. So the dots on the left side of the graph represent Fridays, and the dots on the right side of the graph represents Tuesdays. The lowest occupancy day versus the highest occupancy day. And the data is consistent across Austin, Houston, Chicago, New York, those bigger markets, frankly, where a lot of people, live in a shoebox. If you're in Chicago or New York, you're sharing 1,000 square feet with two roommates. Of course you would go to the office. I think I would probably choose to live at the office at that point, but it's geographical again. And, the cultural aspects of, being together in the office are still valuable. And most people in leadership are seeing that. In fact, it may be more valuable today than it ever has been before. Your new associates really don't understand how to be CPAs or, in fact, lawyers or bankers, right out of school. Their graduate programs teach them how to think, but the firms are responsible for teaching them how to be a professional, how to act, how to win the market, how to be the title. And because of that, there really is no replacement for in-person mentoring. Of course, a high percentage of work an employee does can be done remotely, but one function that can't be left to Zoom or Teams is mentoring. It requires being together in an office, working together, and it needs to be this way for both new employees and senior executives. It's a very tricky problem to solve because partners usually, get a little more leniency when it comes to these hard mandates, and it leads, into the point that we need to make. We need to make the office a desirable place for the sake of everybody. And this is what most organizations are fighting for. They want those card swipes. They want people visiting the office more frequently than not. And none of it's going to happen without the correct support structure on site. So, one of the biggest question marks, especially in larger cities, is the value of real estate and how firms should respond to lower occupancy in their space. It was said to me recently by a COO of a large firm in his industry, and a firm, the firm's decision to begin something like hoteling usually happens concurrently with their lease being up for negotiation. So basically, what he was telling me is that as soon as firms realize how much money they can trim from their real estate spend, they decide to grant flexibility, and the whole idea of work from home becomes a lot easier to swallow. And I've got two clients on opposite sides of the spectrum right now. One literally gave up a floor of their space by subletting. And once leadership saw the benefits of it, and frankly, once they saw a little bit of extra money in their pocket on a monthly basis, they allowed the COO of the firm to approve a remodel to support hybrid work, and they're going to continue subletting. Another firm on the opposite side of the spectrum decided to extend their space just to remain competitive. Their firm demands a little bit more from their people in terms of in-office attendance, but they don't want to fall behind all of the different industry trends when it comes to modern amenities like the things you see on the screen right now, because for them it would be a competitive disadvantage to just keep doing things the same way. So regardless of strategy, most firms are quickly realizing that an upgrade to your real estate or your amenities is completely diluted if there's no equal upgrade to the support structure that makes it run. What good is a coffee bar if you don't have a barista there? What good are flexible meeting rooms if there isn't somebody to reset them according to schedule? And a nice little quip that was written by one of my colleagues is that you would never take your Porsche to a Jiffy Lube. It requires specialization, and you don't want to put that investment at risk. And I think about it this way: a firm's largest line item in terms of cost is the salary they pay to their fee earners. The second is always going to be real estate, especially in the larger markets. On-site support services like I'm talking about, your reception, your mailroom, your hospitality, meeting support, all of those things fall much further down the totem pole. But from an impact standpoint, they can have a big difference in how line items 1 and 2, people in space, become the firm's culture or embrace the firm's culture. If people are having a bad experience on site, they're not coming back. They're going to stay at home. And that's what we have to battle with on a weekly basis. I just visited a nationally recognized professional services firm right now they have a low level of people support, but they have every amenity under the sun, everything you could ever imagine. Their crop of younger associates are loving it because it's unlimited snacks, and it may be their best opportunity for a warm meal being a young professional. But their seasoned partners are not swayed back by granola bars and nitro cold brew, especially when they have to fight for counter space with the visiting interns. So a professionally run office is the most impactful amenity for drawing in your talent. And for that sake, lateral moves as well. You're going to bring all of these people into the office. So I've shared this before. I did one of these about 6-7 months ago, and I wanted to share it again because on-site really is the new offsite. Pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, the script has flipped completely. We used to go to the office to do our focused work. We used to go there to put our heads down, sit in our dedicated office, obviously say hello to people next to the water cooler, and that was about it. But during the pandemic and post-pandemic, we found that all of that busy work is best done in the comfort of our own homes. Why should you have to commute into the office if you're just going to be doing expense reports, or if you're going to be doing client research on a computer screen all day? The office is now meant for collaboration, and firms need to react to that changing trend in the marketplace. More and more firms are reacting, but like I said earlier, it's incremental. Things like hoteling, play a big role in this. Changing the layout of your real estate play a big role in this. But the office is now a place where we need to, collaborate and connect with our teams and do the mentorship that I talked about earlier. So, no matter your preference in attendance policy or your policy, there's the one constant. It's the need for high-level support. I like to joke that we need to earn someone's commute. And most firms, like I said, only do that with incremental changes. So, going back to the industry survey, that we did across professional services, we found that of the 93% of firms who said, yes, we are currently in a hybrid model, whether that means 5% hybrid or 100% hybrid, those who made at least one change, and it was about 88%, to their layout, to their amenities, saw an average increase of 18% for days in the office. That relates to about 9 weeks per year, if you are earning these people back to the office. And we found that across all of the categories of people who redesigned their floor space, they added amenities, enhanced hospitality, they had different training in place for staff, or they implemented hoteling, they all saw success at varying levels. So, first of all, there's no silver bullet for elevating on-site services overnight and gaining the results that I'm talking about. Again, best way to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. And you're only going to see results if they're part of a longer term strategy with the expectation for incremental improvements. So looking at these 4 buckets, like floor space, for example, if you aren't using additional space that has become available because of a hybrid work from home model, you're missing out on a gigantic opportunity. Focusing on comfort and collaboration needs to be top of mind. Think about adding amenities instead of maintaining offices that sit idle. You're usually going to get a little bit of pushback, but I'm talking about me spaces as well as the we spaces, like I talked about earlier, reservable, meeting rooms and interactive lounge areas that, people can have a spirited conversation in, as well as, soundproof privacy booths, or reserved quiet areas where people can do their research, their reading, or they can just, take their break for the day. On the amenities side, some of you might think I'm crazy for saying this, but I feel like at this point, I have irrefutable evidence of success that every firm that is trying to get people back in the office need to hire their own personal barista. Knock down a wall, renovate the break room, use a counter space that you can only use for half a day. It is incredibly impactful. As silly as it sounds, the most impactful addition that we've made to professional services is usually just a half day barista. And we literally had partners, scoffing at the idea when it was proposed, only to be, completely flipped on their heads 3 weeks later, just absolutely lost because their barista wasn't in for the day. They had no idea what to do. Named partners of this firm know this person by name, request his services, in this case, multiple times per day. And he is probably the most protected employee outside of some of the long-term, high tenured assistants. It is incredibly impactful, and your clients will enjoy it as well. On the hospitality front, this is an across the board statement. When firms take a step back and assess the effectiveness of their on-site staff, most of them find that services have been, from a strategy perspective, set aside and or taken for granted. They're technically checking the box in terms of providing, meeting support or reception or mail and copy, but nobody is really going above and beyond because the expectations really haven't changed for 15 or 20 years. A lot of people look at those services as a necessity, but we don't need to innovate. At Forest, we do it a little bit differently. Usually when we're brought in, we elevate that person to a role equivalent to office ambassador. That is a title that we use quite often. They're people who are in charge of making sure that your visiting professionals and clients have the best day possible in the office. We're a big believer in cross training, and our main goal is to compete with and hopefully beat the convenience of work from home. In terms of an experience standpoint, you have to earn the commute. Again, like I said earlier, and people need to feel taken care of when they're in the actual office if you're going to give them the mandate that they need to be there for 3 days, 4 days of the week. And excuse me, this role and this level of service doesn't necessarily mean added headcount. Uh, we would be laughed out of most boardrooms if we just went to every firm and said, yes, if you just add 25% people across the board, you're going to have a better service. Nobody wants to add FTEs and make this a bloated exercise. It's our proprietary model for supporting the office to require cross training between multiple support functions, certification for completing certain programs focused on hospitality and meeting support and serving food, for example. And obviously, we have continuous training, but in many cases, we're able to come on site, find innovation, reduce headcount while also improving service. Frankly, just by adding a resource that can meet the moment. So that's hospitality, and then finally hoteling. Across dozens and dozens of firms that we support, and dozens of firms who have implemented some version of hoteling. There's always the scary bit at the start, but across all of those firms, we have yet to run into a single client that regrets their rollout of a hoteling program. We don't do that on behalf of our clients. We support it. We support it in a different way in which we would support an office that's not hoteling, but we support it nonetheless. But when it comes to providing that mode of convenience in the office, the potential benefits to your firm, they're well documented across dozens of industry articles and sources. And just take it from me, the fear of backlash is greatly exaggerated. Hoteling works. It's something that everyone should at least look at. If you want to speak to a client who has done it, just shoot me an email. I'll connect you with somebody who's like-sized to your firm. But remember, when implementing that change, especially change related to the comfort of your firm's most important assets, the service needs to back up the innovation. We can't cut corners on that front. So I am almost done, actually, but I wanted to just share some additional data that we have in terms of what are the biggest demands for an elevated office experience. Number one, just like the poll that we did at the onset of this webinar, is everybody wants an increased workplace experience. If the office doesn't meet the moment, there's no reason for them to try coming in again. And it doesn't sound like a lot of you have a strict mandate for return to office, so the experience better be there. And then we start talking about things like technology, being able to book rooms easily if you are hoteling, making sure those rooms are reset. Again, that goes back to service, but it still ties into technology. Looking at residential layouts, which is, that's never not going to be funny to me. Residential and commercial layouts. I've seen offices that have beanbag chairs in one room and the next room is a solid oak, conference table. It's funny watching the industry blend, modern amenities with, legacy, firm furniture. At some point, everything will be tossed out, I'm sure. But having outside space and natural light, air quality, and adjustable temperature, and then number 9, which should be number 1, barista level coffee. Everybody wants this. And I wanted to give you a couple of examples. So I talked about having an office ambassador in place, somebody who makes everybody feel like they're having the best possible day that they can in the office. These are some of the services that Forest Solutions is usually brought in to provide. There's always catering involved. There's always, room resets. But I mean, you can see some of the options here. We handle all of the local catering for clients. We usually keep a Rolodex of restaurants who have specialized food for people who have special diets, favorites of the firm. We keep track of how well certain food items were received. We log all of these things. We report them back to the firm. We establish a budget with the firm based on, how expensive a certain place may be. We also police things like catering, where if somebody says, hey, I need dinner or lunch brought into conference room B, we make sure that they check all the boxes. How many people are in this meeting? Oh, it's only 3. Okay, that's against firm policy. It needs to, if you're going to do a dinner, it needs to be larger than that. So you're not incurring extra costs. So, we handle all of those services. We handle all of the room setup. We are essentially the hall monitors. I don't want to say police. We're the hall monitors for things like shared space. You wouldn't believe how often a junior associate accidentally grabs an office that's meant for a senior associate or a partner, or how often a partner just thinks that they can take any space in the firm. We have to do it with a soft touch, obviously, but we reference all of the logs, all of the daily planners for who's going to be in the office and when and what they require, and then we ensure that we're sticking to the plan. So we help the firm conform to all of those new trends, and then on top of that, we're there to just do things that are nice to have. Hey, did you forget an umbrella? Do you need me to run out? Do you need me to take your dry cleaning? Those office ambassadors are truly ingrained in the culture of the firm. And as soon as you bring a service or a person of that caliber into your environment, it will change everything for the better. So that's what we focus on as an organization. The industry is obviously at a crossroads where more and more firms are looking at some kind of hybrid work from home support model for coming into the office, but more and more it is rounding out to those 3 days a week. Those 3 days a week need to be stellar from a support services standpoint, and that's what we do for our clients. So I know I'm way ahead of time, and I think that'll please a lot of people, but that's it for me. I'm more than happy to take any questions that you may have. Or if you want to reach out to me via email, if you're a little too shy to throw something in the chat, I'm always available to answer any additional questions. So Lauren, I don't know the best way to do this. If we just wait for bubbles to appear in the chat, or if you give it a 10-second count and then we say
yeah,
thanks.
I'm not seeing anything. Please feel free to throw anything in the chat. We will give it a couple minutes. Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything. Thank you so much, Nick. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Forest Solutions for the presentation today.
Thank you.